Have you wondered to yourself if it's better to start home shopping now or wait until spring? Which one would be better? Where would the rates be? Because, of course, with the election season, there's going to be a lot of talk about which one's better. And I hear a lot of things sort of anecdotally about waiting. And so we're going to have Molly Zimmerman on today from Bell Bank Mortgage to discuss these pros and cons. And then, of course, I will bring you the Wright County market update, which I try to do every week. My name's Erica Carlson. I'm with Bricks Real Estate. I help people sell and buy real estate all over the Twin Cities, but I primarily focus on the West Metro. If you learn anything new today, I would love for you to join my growing channels, whether you find this on Instagram, my professional Facebook page, or my YouTube channel. If you have any questions during this video and you'd like to set up a discovery call to talk about your particular situation, I'd love to hear from you. You can find my contact information in the link below. You check the first option, which will bring you to my calendar. And from there, of course, pick a time that works best for you. So without further ado, we'll bring Molly Zimmerman on right now, and then we will look at our data. Is it better to buy now? Is it better to wait until the spring? Kind of what are the pros and cons, and how does that affect things with rates? So Molly, when people are asking you, and I don't know, maybe people don't ask you that question, but if they do, what would be your answer? Would you wait to see if things get better, different? What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think my thought is always I think as a buyer, you can kind of feel when the timing is right for you to purchase a property. Nobody can predict what's going to happen to interest rates. Nobody can predict if 6 months from now is going to be better to buy than right now. So I think it's just having the conversations like, can I afford to purchase a property? Does the payment fall, in a really comfortable range for me? Can I budget that in? And then also like, if you fall in love with a property and everything else fits into those categories, or fits into like what you need them to fit into, I would say that's the time to buy a house. I don't think waiting for something to get better is necessarily a great idea. And maybe you've got an opinion on that too, Erica.
Yeah, I mean, this is also individualized, but if we're just painting that broad brush, the hard part about spring, and I don't know what it is in us and like why historically spring is the time where people, come out. Because when we say spring, let's start with that. We're talking January, February. We're not talking about when the leaves are flushed out. That's almost like summer in real estate world. Like our definition of spring market is probably actually winter market to most people. And what we should really redefine it is to post holidays because it is still winter. And so things, I don't know what happens with our mentality as humans, but it's like and I don't mean that everybody celebrates Christmas, but the end of December comes, or maybe it's the new year, that we're kind of trained in on this 365 calendar. It's a fresh year. We're talking to our partners. Hey, is it time to move? Or we even had a conversation at our brokerage about like, do people kind of feel kind of stuffed in their house for that week or two, and they start looking around going, we need a bigger house, or, I don't know exactly how the conversations go. And all of a sudden, and I'm sure you have data on this, and I probably could pull data on this. It's like January 1st comes, or even like post Christmas, to be quite blunt. And now people are calling us again saying, we want to move. And then, they don't necessarily hit the streets, the first week of January. But again, the data shows that. And that's why we analyze this week to week, is to teach and show people how seasonality is such a big impact on. So to your point, yeah, your competition's going up because you thought about moving. So I guess everybody else thought about moving. You weren't the Lone Ranger is what it comes down to.
I would agree. It's funny, I guess, in our world, because I do see it might be something about like the new year, like people want to just like fresh start, like all the things. But also for us, like I feel like it's like it really hits the ground running for some reason, like right after the Super Bowl. So if
Oh,
you're in that group of people, it's like after the Super Bowl, we're like, all right, be ready. This is when things are going to really pick up. But yeah, I mean, I think you're going to be competing probably against more buyers. If Same as if you're like waiting for interest rates to go down. So if rates are also going down at that same time, that is normal for other competition to like come into the market, like after the holidays. You may face even more competition next year. So it's just something to think about. Like, I think buying when there's more competition can be also a stressful thing. So,
well, absolutely, because now you're into multiple offers. And since, we are it's fall slash going into winter at this point. It's like, again, hate to sound like super salesy, but like if you're trying to avoid multiple offers, if you're trying to avoid kind of that stress of losing properties, this is probably a great time to look. Now, I'll just share anecdotally, I have a few listings, and when we're getting offers, they are significantly below asking. And one thing that's really important as a home buyer is working with your agent to understand the not just the seasonability that we're talking about. I think I just made up a word there. But is understanding, like, if I go, like, we had an example of somebody going 250,000 below asking, that isn't the kind of discount you can expect even in a severe buyer's market. That, like, the seller is probably just not going to be open to that. And the problem is, if you write an offer that profoundly below asking, they don't even want to hear from you when you come back around and go, oh, okay, what about 20,000? It's like, you might have, you shot your
You
shot.
can focus
You know,
on.
yeah, you probably are done at that point. And so that's hard for a lot of people to understand is, you don't always have to write, some crazy offer, but you have to be working like with a professional to understand how that's going to land. And people always say, "Oh, are we going to insult them?" No, I don't think we have to worry about people's feelings. It's not like an emotional thing. It's just they're not interested. Like, you don't sound reasonable to them when you're looking for a profound 100, $200,000 price reduction. That's not what the house is worth. You have to kind of put yourself in somebody else's shoes and say, what did they pay? What did they owe on their mortgage? I've had a listing for a while where it's like, this is the number. It's just not negotiable, not because we're being jerks, not because we don't want the house sell. These people are short. There's not a penny left for them to renegotiate this, and due to the circumstances, they're just not going to be able to do that. So just asking to ask, that could be kind of a waste of time. So I want to show you, both Molly and to people who are watching, a resource that's super helpful. There's really, like, there's nothing else that I'm aware of that will give you this, like, very clean data, and I want to explain it real quick. So the first thing is, you find it on our brokerage's website, which is brickstwincities.com. And when you're on the front page, you just scroll down and you'll find what I'm looking at. And I think it's updated weekly. And so this top part will explain the numbers and what's making it a buyer's or seller's market. But we're going to kind of move past that just for the moment, because it's pretty simple, and it gets to the point quickly. So, here at the bottom is this week, we're at 2.98. And so we're at one of the most extreme buyer's markets we've had in 5 years. And I know that you can't really get that from this graph. I'm just sharing that with you. But where I'm going with this is, these are the peaks, are the top of the selling market. This is where there's the most competition for buyers. And so if you're like, when should I sell my house, or when should I buy a house, right? Let's think about this from a selling point of view. Here you go, March 31st. There's your day. Like, literally, there's your day. That's the week you sell your house, and that lines up with what we know. Here, this one's April 30th, going back to 2023. Now we're at February 28th. And that would have 2022 is still kind of considered the pandemic years, right? So that's what you have to understand. You have to take into account of what's going on, right? Like, our number, like, here's 2020. So that kind of throws things a little bit, but there's always these peaks, which is typically spring, which is going to be March and April. It doesn't mean like any of these other months are a bad time to sell a house. But then let's look at the reverse. Okay, 9/30/2021 was the best time to buy. And 2021 was like a hard time to buy a house. I think everybody probably knows that. 2022, it was November, end of November, same for 2023. And look, it's happening again. End of October, November, December, these are your hot months for buying a house. However, I'm going to throw a caveat in there. The inventory is going to be slim, because as these people had their houses listed and they weren't selling, they got frustrated and they probably pulled them from market. So they didn't, accumulate more days on market, and they'll relist in the spring. So if you see a house you've been watching, and you're wondering where it went, well, yeah, I could have sold, etc. But you might want to dig into it and have your agent check because they might be relisted it in February. So going back to your football comment, that is kind of an old, kind of a what's like a word I'm looking for? Not it's like an old saying that you list your house after the Super Bowl. Like if you're looking for like a generic way to look at real estate, I'm sure you've heard that before, Molly. Like Super Bowl is the time to sell. And again, we have a little saying at Bricks: if you wait for it to be green, you're going to lose out on green, which is kind of cheesy and silly, but it's true because if you're waiting for the leaves to flush out, if you're waiting for your grass to be perfectly green, you've actually, and here's the data, you sort of missed out on the peak of the buyer activity. And it's always interesting to me. And even though these peaks and valleys, change year to year a little bit, look what's happening. It's very predictable. We know when buyers come out, we know when buyers slow down. Lots of theories about why, but I don't think we all completely know why people want to buy a house in February, March, and April more than July and August. It's just, it is what it is.
Think we hit a lot. I mean, I think that's good information. I like that graph. It's a nice visual of what exactly we're saying. So
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, we will wrap it up there. If you have any particular questions for us about, the real estate market, getting started, you just want to, maybe talk about things, you can always reach us at the link provided below. Both of our information's there, and we will set up a time that works best for you. Thank you for joining
And
us.
overall, this data is not much different from last week. If we start here at the showings per week per listing, which means what is the buyer activity? How many people are shopping in the 250 to 500K range in the entire county of Wright? And 2.2, so that means like 2 showings per week per listing is average right now. Obviously, there's always exceptions, just averages, which last week was 1.9. So this isn't that much different. Hennepin 3.4, and then it was 3.4. So absolutely no change. Even noticing days on market, the same. Median change went up to 36, so 10 more days, which tells us overall it's taking a month and a half, almost 2 months to sell a house. So really there needs to be a lot of patience when you're selling. It's the end of October. We're going into a Halloween weekend. We just came out of MEA. Wasn't really sure how that was going to affect things. So it's interesting to see this because the answer is it picked up. It just picked up a tiny bit in Wright County. So, there's always going to be those fluctuations. The thing that really jumps out to me, because, closings kind of went back up to where it was 2 weeks ago. Pendings are kind of on the downslide, right? Like there's these tiny little markers. But what really jumps out to me this week is that 656 properties are for sale. 588 of those have no contingencies. Why am I interested in this? I've never seen this number before. Honestly, I haven't. Now, in all fairness, when you go through my graph, if we went up and down, I've been tracking since the beginning of 2023. So we're almost hitting my 2-year anniversary of tracking data. So this isn't, I could pull up other data for you. This is just Erica's particular data that I'm pulling. I have other access to this information. Why is this interesting? Well, that means just in 2 years, this is the most selection you've ever had in a couple of years. Like that's very interesting data. That means people want to sell, but people are not necessarily buying. We have a disconnection, and there's been a lot of talk about what the feds have done. We covered that last week. That interest rates have gone up. We've had some changes. And so these things are impacting sales. The election's around the corner, which is generally giving people a pause. So not on the selling side though. Like that inventory going up is very interesting to me because over and over again, I'm always telling people there's no inventory. Well, it's hard to say that as this number creeps up week over week. So I went back to the beginning of January of 2023. We were not in the 600s. In fact, I started thinking, well, what else can I share with you? We have only been in the 600s since August 14th. Okay. Before that, it was 500, 400. And I'll just go real fast. When I started taking this data and recording it, we were at 408. Now, you can't tell here if it was contingent or not, but it doesn't really matter. It doesn't change. Here we're even in the 300s. Like this is a lot of inventory selection for folks. So it's just interesting because, you know, that just pushes us into that buyer's market. I'm not going to bring up the Twin Cities data this week because it is so similar to last week. Make sure you're reaching out to your favorite loan officer if you want to get, you know, the best knowledge on like what the interest rates are. They're very volatile. Lots of changes in that market. We're definitely in a buyer's market. Like I said, 30 days for the Twin Cities days on market is average. 48 is getting to be where we're at in Wright County. If you guys have any questions about this or anything in particular that I can do research for you, I have access to a lot of information, whether you find it on my website. I do have things broken down by city. I can send you a market report if that would be helpful so you can really narrow it down on your neighborhood. There's a lot of ways to give you access to this information other than watching these videos, but I appreciate that you made it to the end. Have a great week. Thank you.